Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, welcome to another amazing episode of the podcast titled Questions, where we pursue questions through faith in Christ. And of course, I have another amazing episode for you. So without any further ado or delay, let's jump right into it. And before that, I would like to thank you for everyone who supports us and help us to keep us online doing what we do. And if you'd like to support us and to keep us online, please throw in that PayPal donation at princemakoko@gmail.com, or you can go to my website at princemakoko, Mako, makoko.com, click in, give out a donation, and it'll be greatly appreciated. It helps us keep us online, keep on doing this. Other than that, more than that, the most important thing is that we hope that our message and what we do really gives you some clarity, some faith, hope, and everything else in between. Needless to say, today's topic, I want to talk about, I know this is going to sound a bit morbid, but actually, I think society has made the subject of matter morbid and negative. Today I want to talk about death. I think for those of you who've lost people closest to you, death is it's not something that we like to think about, or it's something that hurts. I lost my mother 2 years ago. Worst experience of my life. Nevertheless, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what she's done for me. And I wanted to talk about death, and she was dying very slowly, so I was lucky enough, to be with her in her last few moments. And for me to deal with that, I was studying a lot of philosophy. I was trying to find ways to educate myself in terms of how to deal with death. And I stumbled across a philosophy called Stoicism. If I'm pronouncing it correctly, Stoicism. And in it is a saying that says Memento mori, meaning that to remember you must die. Basically, ancient civilizations used to have skulls in their houses, or have tokens that would always remind them that death is imminent, death is inevitable. And you may think that's a bit morbid, or that's negative and sad, but actually, on the contrary, it was a positive to them, because they were reminded that they were reminded that eventually they will die, and thus making them grateful for the life they have right now. Like, I always ask this question, if I always ask myself this question, when I'm feeling stressed or when I'm feeling troubled, I always ask myself, if I knew for a fact, without shadow of doubt, that today was my last day, would I still be stressing about whatever it is that I'm stressing about? And 10 times out of 10, or actually nine and a half times out of 10, the answer is no, I wouldn't be stressing. It's like memento mori. That's what it means. Remember, you must die. It's almost like when I'm stressed, or like, for example, if I lose my keys, or if somebody stole my money, $100, for example. And I ask myself, if I die, if I knew today I was going to die, would I still be upset over this? No. So with ancient civilizations, they use death as a reminder to be grateful and to be present. To be grateful for the life that we have. Because truth and fact of the matter is this: you and I are far better off alive. We are far better off alive than dead billionaires. We're far better off alive than dead famous celebrities. You and I are in a much better position than somebody who was as famous as Michael Jackson or Elvis Presley. All their fame and fortune cannot buy them what we have right now. Money can come and go, fame can come and go, but this life only comes once. And I want to actually hit into the scriptures for this, because the text in the scriptures pretty much sums it up so perfectly. If we turn to the book of Ecclesiastes, wisdom writings, Ecclesiastes was believed to be written by King Solomon, as most scholars attest. And just to summarize it, like, I always recommend when people always ask me, "Hey, where should I start reading the Bible?" I always recommend Proverbs or Ecclesiastes because those I think that those texts, that writing is the most relatable. That's how I started to read the Bible. I mean, when I first had my hands on the Bible, um, I didn't go into the New Testament or Old Testament. They were just confusing. I don't, it's just at the time. I just, for some reason, I just went to started reading Proverbs, and I remember vividly as if it was yesterday. I was in my final year of high school. I would literally go from home to the mall to go read the Bible, and I was reading Proverbs, and it was a lot of wisdom writings, and it didn't require like specific interpretation or anything. Now, reading in Ecclesiastes, I feel as if it's the most relatable piece of literature you can find in the book. And I want to start off from Ecclesiastes chapter 9. I want to focus on this text. It really speaks to this idea of death, memento mori. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 2. The subtitle of this paragraph, it says, "Death comes to all." I'm going to read from verse 1. The subtitle is "Death Comes to All," and it reads, it's written here. But actually, before I go into it, just want to give a brief context. King Solomon was apparently, seemingly, the most wealthiest, richest man to have ever lived. He tried everything. He's just trying to see, what could bring him happiness. And according to him, the most richest person alive, he said everything is meaningless. He bought land. He bought, he got married to many women. He did every pleasure under the sun. He said he tried it. And his final conclusion is that none of it has meaning. It's just meaningless. And in it, he makes this claim about death in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 1. I'll start and say this. He says, "This too I carefully explored." And I quote, even though the actions of godly and wise people are in God's hands, no one knows whether God will show them favor. The same destiny ultimately awaits everyone, whether righteous or wicked, good or bad, ceremonially clean or unclean, religious or irreligious. Good people receive the same treatment as sinners, and people who make promises to God are treated like those who don't. Verse 3 continues, and he says, "It seems so wrong that everyone under the sun suffers the same fate. Already twisted by evil, people choose their own mad course, for they have no hope. There's nothing ahead but death anyways. There is hope only for the living. As they say, it's better to be a live dog than a dead billionaire." Basically sums up everything I've said thus far. He's saying that basically death is the destiny of everyone, whether you are righteous or unrighteous, whether you're religious or irreligious, whether you're good or bad, whether you're wicked. He says whether you are ceremoniously clean or unclean, whether you are saint or sinner. He said the same destiny awaits every single solitary human being, and that is death. Death awaits us all. On top of that, he closes off on verse 3 and he says, "It is better to be a live dog than a dead billionaire." Like I said, it's better to be alive now than being a dead billionaire. It's better to be alive now than being a dead celebrity, famous, powerful person who once lived. You being alive right now, you are far better off than the most famous, most wealthiest people who have gone before us. I know it's hard to grasp, because we measure life, how important life is, based on how much wealth we accumulate, how rich we are. But the truth of the fact of the matter is this: none of that has meaning. It's meaningless. Solomon himself says that it's meaningless. The only thing that actually counts is the breath of life that you have right now, because death is the destiny of all of us. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that in a sense where, in a stoic kind of sense, where it should make you grateful to be alive today. That you are alive. You know, a lot of people, especially a lot of senior people, they like to go on about how old they are. And I always tell them this: as long as you are alive, you are not old. You're still young. As long as you still have breath in your lungs, you can breathe, you are still young. Life is youth. Life is youth. Doesn't matter what age you are, because at the end of the day, as Solomon says, it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. You may be 100 years old. Even at that point, you are far better off than any rich billionaire or any young dead person. 100-year-old live human being is better off than a young 20-year-old deceased person. So the crux of the matter here, the main point that I'm trying to make is that life is a blessing. And if you have it right now at this moment, you are far better off than most people, regardless of your circumstances. And one thing that is also important to remember, that death is the destiny of all people. I think we live in a culture where we shun death. You know, I'm actually a specific text that's coming to my mind. I think it's also in Ecclesiastes. It says it's better to be in the house of mourning than to be in the house of pleasure and partying, because death is the destiny of all men and women. So the writer is saying that it's better to go to a funeral, to a house of mourning, than to go to a party and celebrate, because death is the destiny of all men. Going to a funeral reminds you of the single one important thing, that you have life, that you have breath of life, that you are blessed enough to be able to go pursue what you want to pursue. Death should not be something that we're afraid of. It's an event that happens to all of us. It's an event that should remind us of what we have right at this moment. Because the strange thing is that society makes us think that we're going to live forever. You're born, you go to school, you get married, you buy a house, you get in debt. For what? To spend on what, 80 somewhat years? And that's it? We spend, it feels like a cruel joke. It feels like life has a cruel joke on us. It's like God has a sense of humor. He gives us life, and we take it and we live it as if we're going to live forever. We accumulate things. We accumulate money, we accumulate possessions. Then we die without any of it. It's crazy. It is absolute insanity. And Solomon even says the same thing. And to sum up what he's saying is that the only thing that has meaning to do is to live and enjoy the life we have while we praise God. That's seemingly the only thing that has purpose. I don't know what you're going through right now, but I want to ask you this question. If you knew for a fact, without shadow of doubt, that today was your last day, if you knew, there was no doubt, you were told you had a final date. In fact, let me broaden the question. If we were all born, imagine if we were all born and we all knew exactly when we were going to die. We knew you were going to die in 2026, 1st of April. You're going to die here. If we were born and we all knew when we were going to die, I guarantee you we would have lived life a lot more differently. What do you think? If I knew, for example, say hypothetically speaking, if I knew my last day was going to be next year in June, I think I'll still be doing this podcast because I enjoy doing it. I'll still be creating content. I'll still be going to the gym because I enjoy doing that. But what I won't do, I will not waste my time with people that don't matter. I will not waste my time on things that don't bring me purpose or fulfillment. So it's always incredibly important to always ask yourself, if today was my last day, would I still do what I'm doing? Would I still care about what I care? Would I still, whatever that's stressing me out currently still be stressing me out? Those are things to think of, and that's the whole point of ancient civilization and Stoicism. Memento mori, remember that you must die, to bring people back to the present. That's what I do when I get stressed. When things really get out of hand, I always think I have life, I have the breath of life. You know, better to be a living dog than a dead lion. So basically, Solomon's saying life. If you have life, you have it. I think we take that for granted sometimes. We're alive and we're so used to it, we never think how much of a blessing it is. You know, so your life does matter. Because I guarantee you, there are many dead people who died with billions of dollars, millions of dollars, who would give every single solitary cent of that to buy whatever life that you have now. It doesn't matter what age you are. I'm sure they would do whatever it takes just to have one more day to do things a lot more differently. So you and I have that life right now as we speak at this moment right now. We have it. And the question is, what are we doing with it? What are we doing with the life that we have right now? And if we knew that today was our last day, what would we change? Because that is something that's very important to think about. If you knew that today was your last day, exactly what would you change? What would you change? What would be different? I think the moment you think about that, it's easier to find your purpose. Because I'm certain that I'll still be here speaking to you right now. Would you still be at the job that you hate? Would you still be hanging around people that you know don't like you? Would you still be hanging around people that you know that you don't like? Would you still pretend to be happy? I think you'll do things a lot more different. So to this I say this to you. Memento mori. Remember, you must die and your time is finite. You're not going to live forever. The old cliche, live life. Live every day like it's your last day. Live every day like it's your last day. Goodness gracious. I say this to you. I will leave you with this. I don't know what's going on in your life. You don't know what's going on in my life. But I do know this. At this moment, I'm a bit sick. I'm sure you can probably hear in my voice. I'm a bit congested. I want to say this to you. Attitude of gratitude. Always be grateful. Gratitude keeps you present. Gratitude does not make void of the challenges that you have. Absolutely not. It just puts everything in perspective and it prioritizes everything. I'm not saying forget about the troubles you have. I'm saying that in the grand scheme of things, whatever troubles you may have, pale in comparison to the fact that today you are still alive and tomorrow you may not be. So I want to remind you of this again. It doesn't matter how old or how young you think you are. It's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. You have the gift of life right now. For that, you can do whatever you please. However you please. If you can. So, I just wanted to take this time just to remind you that your life matters. I mean, in history, well, just in general, there's only one person we know who came back from the dead, and that's Jesus Christ. Death does not have a hold on him. And that's the great thing about being a disciple of Christ, that we have hope in Christ, that there's so much more after death with him. But while we're still here, let us always keep that in mind, that we are blessed to be alive. Thank you very much.